Right, can you hear me okay? Oh, very good. You guys so far from the stage should have sit closer. So I really enjoyed today's session in the morning. I'm going to try some techniques that Claire taught us today, because I'm still new to this public speaking journey. So I'm going to start with this. I'm Elvin, and I'm here. So thank you. The title today talk is called Quality Not and Principles of Quality in Mobile Solutions. I modified the title just a little bit, but same idea. I hope it's okay. So I'm going to start with showing you this quality triangle. As I thought this quality triangle when I was taking project management class when I was getting my master's degree in Chicago. So the teacher, professor, the project management was saying that you cannot get all three items. You cannot get quality, cost, and time on your projects, on your IT projects. And I heard that a lot. I saw this triangle many times. Have you guys seen this triangle before? Or some similar, something like that? Yeah. But throughout my professional career, I realized that for my work, for what I do, I cannot sacrifice on quality. That's not an option for me. And I've been doing IT work for a while now, and quality is never an option to sacrifice for me. And that goes through everything that I do. So I'm working for professional services organization. We do software development for others. And we simply wouldn't be in business, I think, if we ever sacrifice quality. So today I'm going to talk about how we're ensuring that quality always at the highest level. So for us, quality is really a cornerstone of everything that we do. So I personally, when I need to make decisions, I always think about quality first, and that really helps me to be successful, my team to be successful, and the company. Just a little bit about the company. Don't want to bore you too much with it. This is the standard slide that we show when we present the company itself. So I work for a company called Ibm Systems. Does anyone know what Ibm Systems? Have you heard about that? Excellent. One person heard about it. And that's normal. Normally, not a lot of people know about this company, although the company has been around for about 25 years. It's a publicly traded company in New York Stock Exchange. Story is interesting. It was founded by an immigrant from Belarus who came to New Jersey, started this software development company. So what we do today, we do any sort of software development. So it's easier to say what we don't do rather than explaining what we do. So like, for instance, I don't think we do COBOL development, but I'm not even sure about that. And we do work across all the domains. So you see financial services, obviously a big thing for us, travel, entertainment, retail, and so forth, so far. So any type of software development. So I'm personally responsible for mobile development, obviously. And I'm going to tell you about our Ibm Android practice again, really quick. So our mobile practice is pretty large, and historically we've been doing a lot of native development. We have a lot of experience in that. We have 250 Android developers around the globe. So we have various locations, mostly in Eastern Europe is where a lot of those Android development is happening. We cover pretty much almost every Android and Google technology out there. We partner with Google, as a matter of fact, on many, many levels. As you see here on the right, so Google Cloud Platform, Apigee, just a few things. I don't know if you maybe received email from Google, from Firebase. We're one of the few companies who support Google Firebase customers now. So I'm very proud about that. And we're full service shop when it gets to mobile application development. So product design, user experience design, prototyping, mobile strategy, architecture, engineering, deployment, consultation. So all these things is what we do. And about myself, so what I do in the company, I'm a mobile solution architect. My background is native mobile development. I started in 2009 developing iOS application, then switched to Android. So my skills probably split between iOS and Android development. Today I'm heading Mobile Competence Center within this organization, within Ibm, live in Chicago. Originally, I'm from Russia, hence the accent. And I work for multiple professional service organizations, SAP and Nitro, Accenture, you probably heard about it. Like Accenture is a huge company. So always in the field of mobile development, delivery of mobile solutions to like Fortune 500 companies mostly. So delivered maybe throughout my career, maybe about 35 mobile apps, mostly for those big organizations. And for the rest of my time, like if I don't work, which I do work a lot, I'm also father of 3 children, so that occupies pretty much the rest of my time. So again, quality is important. Even in my professional and even in personal life, I always take quality very seriously for every decision that I make. And 4 principles that we use at Ibm and my previous work as well is these. So quality is not only testing in this context. It's those 4 pillars of quality is what's important. Architecture, processes, engineering, or code quality in that case, and testing, obviously. So I'm going to go through these items. Some of them I'll go maybe a little bit deeper, other more high level, so wouldn't bore you too much with them. So quality of architecture. Let me start with saying that what architecture to me, architecture is the communication tool, and that's very important. It's not just documenting something for the purposes of documenting. It really, you need to document something to communicate to members of your team. There are so many school of thoughts how to document architecture. Every company I work for, they have their own school of thought on that. So there is no standard in software architecture today. Or maybe I should rather say there are too many standards. And it doesn't really matter which one you choose. You should choose the one that works for you. But it's important that you have architecture, and that architecture should be quality architecture. And by the way, don't pay too much attention to the slide. What I'm showing you is just to have something on the screen. This particular slide is from Forrester Research, which kind of preaching this 4-tiered architecture for digital solutions, including mobile applications and Android in that case. So this is just one of the examples how architecture could be very simply communicated. This is another example from Firebase. Again, just an example. So what we do in architecture, we define architecture, we start with high-level architecture. High-level architecture that just the whole solution where mobile application or Android application is simply just a component of that solution. There is a back-end integration, there is a third-party tools, analytics, so a lot of things that goes around mobile application. And the way to document that, we create a system context diagram, component diagram, distribution, deployment. So all sort of documentation. There are various tools that could be used to document it. It doesn't really matter as long as architecture serves the purpose at being communication tool to your team, and if it can be understood by the team. Then once we have high-level architecture, we document application architecture. So application architecture is what's inside of your Android application. When we talk about that, we start usually our conversations with the clients about development approach. Today, very often, companies select to go, or we recommend them to go, in some cases when it makes sense, with cross-platform development approach. So a lot of conversations happening around which development approach should be taken, pure native or cross-platform. And okay, so if we decided to go with pure native because that's a good fit for this particular project or product, then we're discussing should we use Android Java or should we use Kotlin or should we use a mix of them? It's always different with different clients because some clients just don't know about Kotlin anything. They're just saying we don't know Kotlin, we don't want to learn it, we want to go with Android Java because this is what we know. And then we that's our job to teach them about it, to make the decision. Then we talk about design patterns here on application architecture, like MVVM, clean architecture, multi-layered. So all these things go into definition of architecture. Another important thing is non-functional requirements, also, or quality attributes. So quality attributes is what you see on the screen, the various ELTs, as we call them. like modifiability, maintainability, accessibility. So all these things should be defined in the Android project. I've been on a project where that was taken to the highest level that I've seen, where we defined about 200 non-functional requirements for the mobile project, for the Android project. That may be a little bit extreme, especially if you're working on a small application. In this particular case, I worked on the project Android application that was deployed in 120 countries. And not just single application, but variation of that app with various features enabled, disabled for the particular market. So definition of those non-functional requirements was very important for that project. Also, I hope you're familiar with Android Jetpack. So what Android did for application architects, developers, is really simplify their life by defining a lot of those architectural components. And I definitely encourage you, if you have ability to use Android Jetpack, please do, because that definitely makes your life easier. In case if you're not familiar, Jetpack just collection of Android software components that kind of ready recommended for you by Android. So these components will help you to follow all the best practices, avoid boilerplate code, and simplify all the tasks. So going back to the architectural description, as I said, there are so many school of thoughts how to document. The one that I really like and definitely recommend you if you ever involved in architecture, look up this notation called C4. So the website called codingthearchitecture.com. This is very easy and agile way of documenting architecture. So basically, you're creating 4 types of diagrams for the architecture, starting with a very simple system context diagram. So what you see on the screen is just an example of that. As you see, it's, I don't know, it's actually maybe hard for you to see, but it's very simple architectural description. So in the middle, you have the system or application in your case. On the top, you have actors. On the bottom, you have the systems that this application interacts with. And you're just describing every actor, what does it do. So as you see, like, this is very easy to understand to anyone on your team. Now, can architecture be bad? I think that it's obvious it can be. And if architecture is not defined good, then what's happening is frustration of the team, miscommunication, and substantially missed deadlines. So you don't want that to happen, definitely. So kind of going into the second pillar, the process, I know you're all familiar with this, so important things, communication, cooperation, and team structure. So what I mean here, don't want to go into too much details here, because I think this topic may be boring for most of you. Development team should work as a true agile team. What that means, on projects that we do, we have developers, testers, UX people, everybody working in the same team. They're starting from day one. I know in some companies, testers start later, let's say maybe in after second sprint, after already development started. So that's definitely not the case, and I don't recommend doing that. Testers should start as soon as possible. As a matter of fact, we like to have testing lead to start during the discovery to define test strategy as soon as possible. And then everybody's working together. As soon as we have something to test, let's say 3 days after sprint starts, we already built something. And if it's possible to test it, we like to involve testers and start testing that thing. And another thing I want to mention, sometimes lines between developers and testers kind of blurred these days, because especially if we're talking about automation testers, because very often those automation testers come with background of, let's say, Java development. So their technical background may be even more comprehensive than the Android developers. So they're really more of engineers rather than just testers. Another thing that we do to ensure quality in processes, architectural reviews. So that happen during the sprint, every sprint. We also invite other architects who are not on the project to come and review architecture. That's a common practice there. So they review architecture with us, they give recommendations. We do architectural katas. It's a learning technique where we kind of train architects or who wants to become architects. So it's a few architects in the room basically giving business issue one to another, and the person needs to solve that issue, that business issue, by designing the system presented to others. We maintain knowledge base, so knowledge base is a really important factor in any professional services organization. So all the new technologies that come up, if we don't have experience with that new technology, we have someone who, either a person on the bench or a person who's just willing to contribute his available time. He's working on that new technology, creating some prototype, point of view type of documentation, populating knowledge base, then sharing, we're doing knowledge sharing within community. So we have a bunch of Android communities. Since we're a global organization, those communities, they could be just local meetups within company. There could be external meetups that we sponsor. All sort of, could be global presentation within company. We also organize Google I/O extended events in multiple locations, at least 2 years in a row in Minsk, Belarus, for instance. We're the one who's organizing it. We have open office hours where anybody can come and ask any questions about Android or mobile development. So all these things, they help to bring quality or have quality at the highest. Few things that Android specific I thought is to ensure quality in processes. Testing on weird and cheap devices that are not common. That's important. Testing for localization, internalization, accessibility, and security. For security, as a matter of fact, our developers have their own security checklists for Android specifically, that they cannot call the user story complete unless all the checklist is checked. And sometimes do certification on Android devices. Then going to the engineering, quality of engineering. So all these things are obviously important. Quality metrics, code health, design patterns, right? We invested into our own mobile continuous integration delivery system. So what you see here is kind of flow for the standard system. Unfortunately, with the challenges that we're having with, we have about 50 clients today and about 80 Android projects that we're running. So with so many different clients and projects, it's impossible to use one system for everybody because everybody have their own requirements. But in case of we have clients who don't have particular requirements or maybe they don't know how to do continuous integration delivery, we have our default approach, and this is what it is. So basically, we have Git repository. We built Jenkins-based continuous integration system, kind of customized Jenkins. We're using Sonarqube for continuous inspection. We execute unit tests. We execute automation tests on something called Ibm device farm that I'm going to show you in a couple minutes. And we deploy applications and something we built Ibm mobile app store. So all these components in the system, they're all optional, could be replaced by other components that client prefer to use. But that's what we use. And just an example of Android project pipeline. So as I mentioned, so we're checking out from Git repository, compile, do unit tests, Sonar preview. Then we use Gerrit. On this particular one, we use Gerrit for code review. Then again, Sonar, check, and then deploying. So this is just an example of the Gerrit screenshot. So another thing we wanted to pay a little bit more attention is Sonarqube. So Sonarqube, I'm sure a lot of you heard about Sonarqube and maybe used it for years. It's a really good tool, especially for Android development, because you get majority of the features of Sonar for free, because it's made for Java. But what I found on the projects where I was involved, Sonar really pays off if you don't just use Sonar with default settings, but you actually customize it for your needs. So in this particular project that I'm showing you, when we started working on this, it had several thousand of issues and technical debt that Sonar was showing it was, if I remember correctly, maybe a few months of technical debt. So we worked very diligently to take that down. And as you see here, technical debt is like 1 day, 5 hours, which is really nothing. By customizing Sonarqube for our needs, by taking the full advantage of it, so verifying all the reports daily, acting upon them. For the quality gates on Sonar, so this is just another screenshot from the same project. In the quality gates on Sonar, they were defined, and we had architectural meetings where different architects were coming and we were discussing what those quality gates should be on the various projects that we're running. Same goes for the rules that we have on Sonar. Sonar has some default rules for Android. You probably want to adjust those rules or add your own rules that will fit your projects, your products. So from here, going to testing. Testing approach, quality and testing, it's a few things. Continuous testing is one that under continuous testing, there are multiple techniques that we use. Another very efficient technique called eat your own dog food or drink your own champagne, which is the same thing. And the third one is using device farms. So I think there are a few talks today about device farms, so I'm going to mention that. Again, the challenges that we're having is variety of projects and clients, variety of devices, always different environments, dependencies from each one, and data, like quality of data. So what continuous testing for us is static analysis, unit integration testing, functional testing, so all these things that you see, visual QA sometimes. So that's just the standard approach to testing for us. So we do all these things on every project that we do. For eat your own dog food, that's an interesting one. So we do that on some of the projects, some of the products that we develop for clients, but that's, for us, that's been challenging. From what I'm hearing from projects who are actually using this approach to testing, they're saying this is most efficient way. They're saying there's no need for UI functional testing if you use this approach. So if you're not familiar with this approach, what it is pretty much, it means use your own product. So if you're using your own product, like use it as a consumer, as a user of the product, then you can find all the issues with that product early and report them, and it will help you to prioritize what's working and what's not. So being in the professional service organization, it's kind of hard to have that culture of using that. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because when we develop something for somebody else, sometimes we don't feel the ownership of that product, unfortunately. But I think that still can be achieved. So anyway, that's definitely a recommended way of testing. And device farm, so those are the ones that we use. I'm sure you heard probably for, if not, but most of them. Perfecto Mobile, AWS Device Farm, Xamarin Test Cloud. So Xamarin Test Cloud, we have partnership with Microsoft, and that's why we get some free time on Xamarin Test Cloud. Especially works very well for Xamarin development. And Ibm Device Farm is one I mentioned that I want to show you. So we decided to develop our own device farm. There are a lot of reasons why we decided to do that. So this is our own product that we use. It was just recently released now, available for all the Android and iOS developers within Ibm, and we're offering that to the clients, and soon it's going to be public offering. So what it is, as you can imagine, it's similar to other device farms. So this is the actual photo of what the instance of device farm will look like. It's a secure box that has a bunch of actual physical mobile devices inside of it. And what's interesting, if you might wonder what's on the top of that box, on the top is actually images. So you can put images on the bottom of this box in case if you want to test QR codes, for instance, or something with the camera. And you can put images on the top. And device, since it's a secure device, it's a metal box. It can be placed anywhere. That's the beauty of it. And I have just a quick video here to show you the way this mobile device farm works. As you see, so it has a mobile device management capability. You can just manage all the devices that you have there, different views. Same for iOS devices. This device farm supports multi-touch, rotation, gestures, so a very capable tool. One thing that I found sort of unique about this tool is that it supports geolocation, so you can mark geolocation without using Android marking. Like, you know how you can go into settings and mark geolocation of Android device. So we're not using that because some applications, they prevent that. So when they determine that you're using geolocation marking, they prevent from further usage. So we took the different approach there. So as you see on the right side, we're moving location of the marked geolocation. And the Android device from the farm on the left, its location is changing there automatically. So there are a lot of features that this mobile device farm does. Debugging web hybrid application in addition to native iOS and Android, things like that. Another thing worth mentioning here is that we decided to support Ibm automation test on this farm. And this is the reason that I was asking the product development team, why Ibm only, why no other frameworks? The answer I got that this is sort of the trend that they're seeing, that Ibm today, at least in the projects that we're delivering, Ibm is really becoming standard for automated testing. And explanation why it's becoming standard, I was told not that it's best framework out there because it doesn't require any libraries integration into the application. And that's why most of the customers selecting it. And obviously it's a cross-platform tool. So as I mentioned, Ibm is probably #1 in the testing tools that we use. We also use, obviously, Espresso, UI Automator, and Calabash, but about 90% of Android work or mobile work that we do, Ibm is really automation tool of choice. For unit testing, it's, I mean, you probably know all these tools that we use. Just want to mention, in case if you know them already, using them, so that could be your confirmation that company who's running 80 projects also using them. Inspection tools, so already mentioned, Sonarqube is #1, and a bunch of other tools like CheckStyle, PMD, Android Lint, Kotlin Lint. We have a bunch of customer code quality tools that were custom developed for that particular case. A lot of those tools can be integrated into Sonarqube, and that's what I encourage everybody to do, to integrate them, because on Sonarqube you can have this really pretty dashboard that you have all your quality metrics in one place. In terms of automation, so in this case, automation meaning continuous integration delivery tools. So we have our own, as I mentioned, the Jenkins-based tool called Booster. We use Jenkins on a lot of projects. We use GitLab CI/CD pipeline. Microsoft App Center became very popular choice recently. I don't know if you heard of this tool. So that's kind of like all-in-one automation, continuous integration, deployment, and a bunch of other features there. The problem with Microsoft App Center that we're having that it doesn't support generic Git today. So it doesn't support GitLab. So that's why it's limiting options. So for customers who don't use, so they only support GitHub, Bitbucket, and VSTS. So if our customers don't use one of those three, so MS App Center is not an option for them. A couple others, VSTS, obviously, sometimes used for builds, and Bitrise. We probably use more than that, but those are the ones that I remembered. For QA deployment, so our own app store that we developed, we used Hacky App a lot, and now Hacky App is being replaced with Microsoft App Center, so we use that more often. Fabric. For code review, use Gerrit, Crucible, and Atlassian tool, along with a bunch of other Atlassian tools. GitHub for just pull request review, GitLab, and just a few other tools that are commonly used for testing. Charles, Postman, right, and InVision for QA review. So back to this quality triangle. So I'm just kind of wrapping up here. Again, just want to remind you that we cannot sacrifice quality. So quality is always at the top of our list of the things that we do. And that's very important. I encourage you to do the same, because if you choose quality first when you need to make any decision, normally you always win. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for your attention.